I will tell you that the price of therapy was every single one of my relationships.
Okay. Well, that's kind of been my experience too. Um, well, not necessarily just therapy, but the whole process of like trying to exhume the stuff that's buried in my mind, trying to process emotions, if that makes sense. Um,
Well, okay, let me
I,
ask you
I
this.
guess
Are you married? Do you have children? Do you have a long-term girlfriend? Are you close to your family of origin?
uh, no to the first two, and no, I'm not close to my family of origin.
Okay, and in terms of friendships, are you willing, should it become necessary, are you willing to scrub everyone from your life? And I'm not saying this is necessary or inevitable. I'm just saying that that has been my experience, and it's been the experience of lots of people I've talked to over the years. So from the time that I went into therapy to the time shortly after therapy, I have nobody left from the before times. BT and AT, before therapy, after therapy. There's nobody in my life from my youth and my early adulthood. There's nobody in my life. Every single one of my relationships, business, romantic, familial, personal, every single one of my relationships fell away through the process of therapy. Now, again, I'm not saying that's inevitable or true for everyone. But I'm just saying that that was my experience, and the reasons for that obviously are that if people are happy with you and claim to love you or care about you, if people are happy with you in a state of unconsciousness, they are very unlikely to be happy with you when you become conscious. If people are happy with you or claim to be in a state of amorality, they will probably not be happy with you when you become moral. If people are happy with you in a state of self-dishonesty, then they're much less likely to be happy with you in a state of honesty. You can't ask people to like both you and, in many ways, the opposite of you when you change. It would be like marrying a woman because you love her. She's honest and forthright and direct and moral and so on, right? And then she becomes some sociopathic, pathologically lying criminal. You can't love her anymore because she's the opposite of what she was. And for me, the process of therapy was the process of bringing my values to life, the process that I bring to people in the call-in shows of saying, you really have to live your values while having sympathy for why people don't, is the process that I went through, not just in therapy, of course, but in a variety of things where my unconscious was just in full revolt against the hypocrisy of how I was living, which is to say I value reason and evidence and virtue, and I was surrounded by people who were opposed to those things. And I mean, historical momentum and inertia, and, I'm not like blaming myself for all of that, but it does seem pretty obvious in hindsight that people preferred me as a hypocrite. And when I made significant efforts with some reasonable degree of success to stop being a hypocrite, well, I ran into big problems with my relationships, all of them, right? I mean, I went into therapy. I was engaged to a woman. I was going to get married. That all crumbled and left. My relationships in the business world, I'm in contact with nobody from the past. Family, nobody. Friends, not one. Friendships of 20 years plus just evaporated when I stopped lying to myself. Because, of course, they preferred me in a state, and it's all unconscious or whatever, they preferred me in a state of falsehood and hypocrisy. And when I changed from that to some reasonable levels of self-honesty, honesty, and consistency and non-hypocrisy, integrity, well, it just turns out they didn't really like the opposite of what they liked, which is inevitable, right? I mean, how could you like a thing and its opposite? You can't. I mean, particularly when it comes to something like love. You can't love a person for particular characteristics and also love another person for the opposite of those characteristics. That would be kind of crazy, right? So therapy is the process of becoming, in many ways, the opposite of who you were. And unless people are willing to come along in that journey, which is a hell of a journey, they don't come along. And for me, it was like, okay, well, I can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. I can't unsee what I've seen. I can't unknow what I know. I can't spend my whole life speaking English and then lose the ability to understand English. So I can't go backwards. I have to go forward. And I was hoping that people would come along with me. Of course, I encouraged my friends, hey, man, therapy is really great. You should try it. And so on. And I was talking about the things that I was learning in therapy and really recommending it to people, with all the humility of I should have done it earlier. I mean, I studied self-knowledge and all of that from my mid-teens, but I didn't really bring it to life and so on. I was living in my head, ivory tower theory, not practice. And I was recommending to people that they try it, or at least really try and learn these lessons and so on. And people didn't like me. They didn't like me. I mean, it's kind of wild, man. They didn't like me when I was myself, when I was actually living my values, when I was living with self-knowledge and integrity. They didn't like me when I was becoming a good person, an honest person with some good levels of integrity. They didn't like me. People in the business world didn't like me when I was more honest. My friends didn't like me when I was more honest. And because when you become honest and you have integrity, the standards of your relationships inevitably rise. And people didn't want to come along. So I hope that helps a little.
It does. It does. As to your point about like being willing to separate from anybody in your life who's not coming along to like not hamper your process, I've already that ship has already sailed. I'm in it for the long haul. So
well, and
that
sorry,
is
just
something I'm
to
willing to do.
correct a little. It's not like being willing to. It's just it's going to happen. If you get on a cruise and you leave the shore, you say, well, you have to be willing to leave the shore. It's like, well, you're already on the cruise ship. The shore, like whether you're willing to or not, it's going to happen. And so it's not even really that much of a conscious choice. You just find that you have a commitment to honesty that you find really powerful. And then when you're honest with the people in your life, they don't like you anymore. And so it's not even, for me, it wasn't even a willingness. It's just, okay, well, that's what happens. If I have a friend, I speak Japanese and he speaks, let's say that we both speak English, and then I say, I'm only going to speak Japanese now and no more English. Either he learns Japanese or the friendship ends, because we just don't have anything to say to each other. If I'm speaking in Japanese, he doesn't speak Japanese. So, okay, so what's your other concern then?
Okay. Well, just to comment on what you just said there, because that was interesting. So you said when you started going through this process, it wasn't like you were trying to hold on to these friendships. Well, maybe you were a little bit, but when these friendships didn't follow you along the path you were going, it wasn't like you were still magnetized to them. You still wanted to be their friend. Like you just naturally fell apart. Like if you like a certain food and suddenly you just find it disgusting, you're like, oh, I can't eat this anymore. I'm just
No,
gone.
I wanted to
Is
keep the
that what you mean?
friendships. I wanted to. I wanted to keep the friendships. I really wanted to keep the relationships. I thought, well, geez, if they like me for who I am, when I become more myself, they'll like me even more. I thought this would help the friendships, strengthen the friendships, and the goals that I was pursuing would help other people as well. But it just didn't work out that way.
Okay, so you did have to sort of break it off yourself. You'd have to say, okay, I'm just not doing this anymore.
No, it wasn't really a choice. It just became less and less enjoyable.
Okay, that's what I meant. Okay, sorry for the miscommunication.
No, these are complicated topics. Nothing to apologize for.
Okay, I guess just the last part, to reiterate on what I was saying in the beginning, I'm really just curious about how this process feels. Like, was it just a process of like logically getting through your life with your therapist, or were there a lot of like emotional sort of explosions coming out of you? Like you talked about the time in Morocco where you were in that back of that car, I believe, and you were just having these violent images. Like, what were the frequency of these sort of emotional, I don't want to say outbursts because it's not like a tantrum or something, but like these emotional explosions from inside your head?
Oh, I was constant. I felt like I was losing my mind. I felt like, and of course, both of my parents suffer from extreme problems with mental illness. Both have been institutionalized and so on, right? So, in the process of truly becoming myself, becoming honest with myself, living with more external integrity, I felt, it was the greatest fear of my life, because I had seen what happens directly in my family when people lose their minds. And I felt like I was losing my mind. And so it was appalling. And it was chaotic. It was emotionally violent. I had lucid dreams of immense power. I couldn't sleep. I had rolling waves of stress, happiness, tears, and I felt like I was losing my mind. It felt like I was throwing myself off a cliff, hoping to evolve wings somewhere on the way down. And there were times when I was like, well, is this what I didn't think so, but is this what my parents did? Did they try to become more honest or more themselves and lost their minds? Is this a terrible path? But it didn't really matter because I just couldn't sleep. It didn't really matter. Like what I wanted to or didn't want to do. It was not that much of a voluntary process. I was happy, just dumpty-dum, moving along, doing my business and being engaged and all of that and seeing friends. And it was fine. It wasn't bad. But my unconscious was in full revolt. And the level of, like in the Miko system, I had this character called Lord Gruel, who just had the most contempt for my lily-livered, weak-kneed approach to moral integrity. Talk, 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 talk. Who cares? It's just virtue signaling. You're just yapping to yourself. You don't believe any of it. You don't live any of it. It's not real. It's just vanity. You like to think that you're smart and good, but you don't actually do it. Right? And I had all of these ferocious arguments with aspects of myself, the frustrated integrity that wasn't being given voice or scope or action. Yeah. It was a horrendous process. And I can see why people don't. I mean, the rewards are great. The rewards are great, but it was 16 months of wild and crazy chaos and fear that it was going to land in a bad place, for sure, as I'd seen in my family.
What did your roommates think of you going through this Did they see any of this stuff themselves, or did you just like talk to them off and on?
Oh no, I didn't talk to my roommates about this. I mean, so this is just a place I landed after I broke up with my fiance. So they were not people I were close to and so on. I mean, fine people, whatever. But no, I didn't talk about it with my roommates. No. I mean, you can't. I mean, I couldn't talk about this with anyone, really. I mean, I tried, but this is why I journaled so heavily, because there was nobody. I mean, I could talk about it with my therapist, and even my therapist was sometimes a little playing catch up and was kind of confused. So yeah, it was a hell of a process. I mean, the rewards have been fantastic. I mean, definitely. I mean, that 20,000 was the best money I ever spent in my life, and it feels like you're going crazy when you're becoming sane. Because what it does is it exposes the craziness of everyone around you and your own form of craziness in ignoring and conforming to it. So, yeah, it's a wild process.
I guess I'm just trying to figure out why that process hasn't kickstarted in me yet. I'm just trying to do a little bit of troubleshooting, but that was useful information. I appreciate it.
How long have you been doing the process?
Well, I think it was